My name is Cole Evans, and I'm pretty much a nobody. Today, my best friend was supposed to get married. The bride? Serafina Stone, the most beautiful CEO in all of Port Sterling. I showed up at the reception, ready to celebrate, only to walk straight into a Category 5 hurricane of drama. The groom had bailed. To save both families from total humiliation and to spare the woman standing alone on that stage from complete devastation, I did something stupid. Fueled by a surge of liquid courage, I walked right up there. "He won't marry her?" I announced. "I will." I thought it was just an act, a temporary fix to a disastrous situation. But later that night, staring at my new, ice-cold, and breathtakingly beautiful bride, I realized, I think I actually went and got myself married. And that was just the beginning. While everyone was laughing at me, calling me a frog, trying to kiss a princess, nobody knew that my mentor, who'd been missing for 3 years, was the last living master of a forgotten medical art, and I was his only student. And now, let's give our warmest round of applause for the groom, Mr. Leo Harrison, and the bride, Ms. Serafina Stone, as they make their way to the altar. The MC's booming voice echoed through the grand ballroom of the 5-star Grand Sterling Hotel. The spotlights swiveled, the music swelled. Every guest craned their neck, eyes fixed on the magnificent golden doors at the end of the aisle. The doors opened, but only one person walked out, a woman in a brilliant white wedding gown. So beautiful, she looked like she'd stepped out of a dream. She was the bride, Serafina Stone, Port Sterling's #1 beauty, the city's infamous Ice Queen CEO. But where was the groom? Where was Leo, my best friend, the man of the hour? Where the hell was he? I gripped my whiskey glass, sitting in a forgotten corner of the room, my brow knotting into a tight line. The music was still playing, but the vibe of the room had curdled. Serafina stood alone at the entrance, bathed in a spotlight that illuminated her flawless face, but couldn't penetrate the cold, hollow look in her eyes. She was like a perfect ice sculpture, frozen in place, forced to endure the stares of 1,000 guests. A mixture of confusion, pity, and thinly veiled amusement. "What's going on? Where's Mr. Harrison?" No way, he didn't actually ditch her, did he? I heard the Harrisons never approved of this match. If Stone Industries wasn't on the verge of bankruptcy and offering up the whole company as a dowry, this wedding would have never happened. TSK, this is going to be good. Is the Ice Queen of Port Sterling about to get returned to sender right at the altar? The whispers were like 1,000 tiny needles, pricking at the tense silence. I saw Serafina's father, Marcus Stone, the chairman of Stone Industries. His normally imposing face was drained of all color, his lips trembling as he stared obsessively at his phone. Her mother, Melissa, was sweating bullets, looking like she was about to rush the stage. The MC was lost, fumbling with his microphone, sweat beading on his forehead as he tried to smooth things over. Haha. It seems our groom has a little surprise for us. He's probably just backstage, preparing a very special gift. Even he didn't believe the words coming out of his own mouth. Just then, Marcus Stone's phone rang. He snatched it up like a drowning man grabbing a life raft, his voice shaking. "Hello? Lau? Where are you? Everyone's waiting." I couldn't hear the reply, but I saw Marcus's body go rigid. The phone slipped from his grasp, clattering to the marble floor. It was as if all the strength had been sucked out of him. He collapsed into his chair, his eyes vacant, muttering, "It's over. It's all over." Melissa shrieked, rushing to his side. "Marcus, what is it? What did Leo say?" He said the wedding's off," Marcus whispered, his face ashen. "He said our family is nothing but a pack of social climbing vampires. That he never cared for Sarah at all. He did this on purpose, to make us a laughingstock in front of the entire city." Boom! The words detonated in the ballroom. Everyone was stunned. Humiliation. This was a naked, vicious, and perfectly engineered humiliation. To lift someone to the highest point only to throw them down, to shatter them in front of every important person in Port Sterling. My God, Leo can be that cruel? The Stone family is finished. How can they ever show their faces in this city again? My eyes were glued to the solitary figure on the stage. Serafina still stood perfectly straight, but the slight tremble in her shoulders betrayed the utter devastation she felt. This untouchable Ice Queen, this titan of industry, looked like a little girl abandoned by the entire world. And the one responsible for it all, Leo, the guy who called me his bro, who said I was the best friend a guy could ask for. Where was he? I pulled out my phone and dialed his number. He picked up almost immediately. Yo, Cole, my man. Ha, are you there? Is the scene epic or what? Leo's smug, mocking laughter crackled through the phone, punctuated by the sound of ocean waves and a roaring sports car engine. A white-hot rage shot up from my feet to the crown of my head. I kept my voice low, speaking through clenched teeth. Now, where the hell are you? On my way to the airport, bro. Heading for a little tropical vacation, he said, not a care in the world. What's up? You shocked? A bankrupt family trying to latch onto us? And that girl, what's her name? Oh yes, Serafina. Walking around with that stick up her ass all day, thinking she's God's gift. I wouldn't touch her if she was the last woman on earth. Today I'm going to teach her and her whole pathetic family the meaning of despair. Dude, he was still rambling. A woman like that needs to be put in her place. Hello? Hello? Cole? You still there? I didn't say a word. I ended the call. My heart clenched with such fury that I couldn't breathe. I looked at the woman on stage, abandoned and ridiculed. I looked at her parents, practically catatonic with grief. I looked at the gleeful, gossiping faces in the crowd, all waiting for the final act of the freak show. The burn of the whiskey in my gut mixed with a hotter, more primal fire in my blood. Screw it. Leo, you want to play dirty? Fiend. You can play that game. You want to humiliate the Stone family? Not on my watch. I threw back the rest of my whiskey, the liquid fire scorching my throat. As every eye in the room turned to me in shock, I pushed back my chair and walked, step by deliberate step, onto that brightly lit stage. I took the microphone from the stunned MC's hand. The ballroom fell dead silent. Every single person was now staring at me. A guy in a simple blazer and jeans, completely out of place in this black tie affair. Who's that guy? I think he's one of Leo's friends. Cole or something. What is he doing? Is he crazy? I ignored them all. I turned and faced the woman in front of me. I could see a single tear clinging to her eyelash, fighting a losing battle not to fall. Her eyes were filled with confusion, shock, and a sliver of defensiveness. I took a deep breath, brought the microphone to my lips, and with all the strength I had, I made my voice ring through every corner of that hall. Leo Harrison is a coward. He won't marry you. I paused, locking eyes with her. So I will. For 3 seconds, you could have heard a pin drop. Then, the room exploded in an uproar. He's insane. The guy's totally lost his mind. Who does he think he is? Some broke loser? Does he even have the right to say that? How much cheap booze did he drink? He must be desperate for attention. Serafina's mother, Melissa, was the first to react. She charged up the stage like an enraged lioness, her designer dress swishing around her. She pointed a trembling finger at my face and shrieked, "Who the hell do you think you are? Get off this stage. Isn't it bad enough that we're the laughingstock of the city? We don't need some nobody off the street making it worse." Her spittle nearly hit my cheek. I looked at her, my face a mask. My voice was quiet, but it cut like glass. Right now, I'm the only one who can give the Stone family back its dignity. You. Melissa was shaking with rage, raising her hand to slap me. Stop. The command was weak, but it carried the weight of authority. It was Marcus Stone, supported by a relative. He staggered onto the stage, his face pale as a sheet. He grabbed his wife's arm, his complicated gaze falling on me. It was a look of scrutiny, of doubt, but mostly of a desperate man clinging to his last hope. You're Leo's friend, Cole Evans? He asked, his breath ragged. I am, I nodded. What you just said? Were you serious? His voice trembled. I was. I nodded again, my gaze unwavering. Marcus stared into my eyes for a full 10 seconds, as if trying to see into my very soul. Finally, looking as if he'd just made the hardest decision of his life, his shoulders slumped. He turned away from me, faced the crowd, and with every ounce of strength he had left, he announced hoarsely, "Ladies and gentlemen, my deepest apologies. We've had a small, last-minute change of plans. The groom has been replaced. The wedding will proceed." Boom! The crowd went wild again. Replaced? Just like that? Marrying their daughter off to some random guy. Had Marcus Stone lost his mind? Melissa was beside herself. "Marcus, are you crazy?" she sobbed. You're going to let Sarah marry this loser? I don't agree. I will never agree. It's not up to you. Marcus yelled, yanking his arm away, his eyes bloodshot. If this wedding doesn't happen today, the Stone family is completely finished. The bank loans, the pressure from the King family. How are we going to pay any of it back? You want Sarah to jump off a bridge with us? Melissa's hysterics died in her throat. She crumpled to the floor, her face a mask of utter despair. Through it all, Serafina hadn't said a single word. She just watched me, her beautiful eyes like a frozen lake. But beneath that ice, I thought I saw a tiny, flickering flame. She was taking a gamble that I was the only thing she could grab onto before she fell into the abyss, even if that thing looked ridiculously fragile. The rest of the wedding was a chaotic, surreal blur, under the weight of countless stares, some pitying, some contemptuous, some just morbidly curious. I took Serafina's hand, walked the aisle, exchanged rings, and did the champagne toast. I felt like a puppet. She looked like a doll with no soul. We had completed the wedding of the century and become the joke of the century. During the reception, almost no one had a kind word for us. Marcus, I gotta say, I really don't get this move, one portly businessman said with a sneer. Yeah, even if Leo bolted, you didn't have to grab some. Kid to fill in, did you? What's this going to do to the Stone family's reputation? Marcus forced a smile and downed glass after glass of bitter wine. Melissa simply hid in a corner, sobbing, shooting me looks that could kill. Finally, the ordeal was over. I was driven with Serafina to her bridal suite, a sprawling, multi-level penthouse in one of the most exclusive buildings downtown, overlooking the harbor. The place was over 10,000 square feet of pure, unadulterated luxury. The moment the door closed, she ripped her hand out of mine. All right, what's your angle? Her voice was glacial, echoing in the vast living room. It was laced with suspicion. How much did Leo pay you to pull this stunt? I gave a short, humorless laugh and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out at the glittering lights of Port Sterling. He didn't pay me anything, I said quietly. He just wanted to watch you and your family get ground into the dirt. I don't have many special talents, but I can't stand watching someone get bullied like that. Serafina was taken aback, clearly not expecting that answer. She was silent for a moment before speaking again, her tone slightly less hostile. Thank you for saving me from total humiliation today. But this isn't going to work. She pulled a folder and a pen from her purse and slapped them down on the coffee table. This is a prenup. I've already signed it. We'll remain married in name only for 1 year. After that, we divorce amicably. As compensation, this debit card has $10 million on it. Consider it your payment. The Ice Queen was back, her face an unreadable mask of cold detachment. Take the money. Starting tomorrow, we live separate lives. In public, you will play the part of the dutiful son-in-law. At home, you will stay in the downstairs guest room. You are not to come to the second floor, and you are not to touch me. I looked at the contract and the debit card, and I smiled. Not a smirk, not a sneer. Just a genuine smile at the sheer absurdity of it all. I didn't reach for the card. Instead, I pulled out my own phone, opened my banking app, and held the screen out for her to see. The long string of zeros on my account balance made her icy composure crack for the first time. You? She stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief. Money, I said, putting my phone away, is something I might have a little more of than you think. I looked her straight in the eye. I helped you, but not for your money, and not to be the Stone family's son-in-law. I paused, letting the words hang in the air before delivering the final blow. I just wanted to make a point to Leo, and to everyone else who looks down on you. What they threw away, I consider a treasure. The person they try to trample is the person I will protect. From this day forward, as long as I'm around, no one will ever bully you again. My words were like a stone tossed into the frozen lake of her heart. For the first time, her stunning face showed a flicker of shock and confusion. She had probably never had a man barge into her life with such raw, unapologetic force and say something like that to her. You. She opened her mouth, as if to say something, but no words came out. She just gave me one last, incredibly complex look, then turned, walked up the grand staircase, and shut the master bedroom door behind her. The loud click echoed through the penthouse, signaling the end of our wedding night. I let out a self-deprecating laugh, shrugged it off, and headed for the guest room downstairs. It had been a long day. I was beat. I just gotten out of the shower and collapsed onto the bed when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Leo, a selfie of him on a private jet, the turquoise waters of the Caribbean visible out the window. The caption read, "So long, Port Sterling, and so long to that stupid bitch. Ha ha ha." It was followed by a voice message. "Cole, my man, I heard you played the hero after I left. Way to go. What? You got a thing for the Ice Queen. Let me tell you, she's all looks, no fun. Don't get yourself trapped. But hey, thanks for taking her off my hands. I honestly had no idea how I was going to ditch that clingy gold digger. Ha ha ha." My face remained impassive as I listened, but my knuckles turned white. I didn't reply. There's no point in talking to a dead man. I opened a different chat window, one with no profile picture, just a string of encrypted code for a name. I typed 2 words, "Find him." 3 seconds later, a single word came back, "Done." With that, I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. Have fun on your vacation, Leo, because your time is running out. The next morning, I was jolted awake by a shrill argument. "No, I will not allow this loser to live here. Serafina, you tell him to get out right now." It was my new mother-in-law, Melissa. "Mom, would you please stop it? If it wasn't for him, our family would be a permanent joke in this city." Serafina's voice was cool but firm. "A joke? You think we're not a joke now? You married a penniless nobody. That's even more humiliating than being left at the altar. Do you know what they're saying out there? That the Stones are so desperate, we picked a beggar off the street to be our son-in-law." Melissa's voice grew sharper, more hysterical. I got dressed and walked out of the guest room. In the living room, Melissa was jabbing a finger at Serafina while Marcus sat on the couch, sighing heavily. The moment she saw me, Melissa redirected her fire. You have a nerve to show your face? You're not welcome here. Here's $200. Take it and get lost." She pulled 2 crisp $100 bills from her purse and contemptuously threw them at my feet, as if I were a panhandler. Serafina's face instantly hardened. "Mom." I bent down and picked up the $200. A triumphant smirk spread across Melissa's face. "Good. You know your place." I walked over to her, holding the bills. Then, right in front of her, I ripped them into tiny pieces. "You." Melissa's eyes bulged. "First, I'm not a loser," I said calmly, but my eyes were ice cold. "Second, I am now Serafina's legal husband. I live here now. And third," I paused, my voice taking on a dangerous edge, "if you ever speak to me with that tone again, I will be more than happy to teach you the meaning of the word respect." Without another glance at her, I walked into the dining room, poured myself a bowl of oatmeal, and began to eat as if nothing had happened. The living room was utterly silent. Melissa was so stunned she couldn't speak, her face turning a blotchy, furious red. Marcus stared at me in shock, as if he couldn't believe this ordinary-looking young man possessed such an iron will. And Serafina, she stood there, watching my back, and for the first time, a strange light flickered in her cold, beautiful eyes. Just then, the butler came running in, his face pale with panic. "Mr. Stone, Mrs. Stone, it's terrible news." Marcus's heart sank. "What now?" It's the general," the butler stammered. He suddenly couldn't breathe, and he collapsed. "The family doctor says. He says it doesn't look good. He told us to prepare for the worst." "What?" Marcus and Melissa's faces went white. Forgetting all about me, they bolted out the door. Serafina swayed on her feet, the blood draining from her face. I knew that her grandfather, General Stone, was the only source of warmth and support she had in this family. She started to follow them. As she passed me, I reached out and grabbed her wrist. Her hand was ice cold. "Don't panic," I said, looking at her reddening eyes. "Take me with you." Serafina stopped, looking at me with confusion and doubt. I know a little about medicine," I said, offering no further explanation. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to say, "This is no time for games." But then she looked into my eyes that were as calm and steady as a mountain, and against all reason, she nodded. "Okay." When we arrived at the old Stone family manor, the atmosphere was so thick with grief you could barely breathe. The wing where General Stone lived was already crowded with family members and several of Port Sterling's most renowned medical specialists. "I'm sorry, Mr. Stone, we've done all we can. The general's time is up, a white-haired doctor said, shaking his head as he removed his stethoscope. Please try something else. My father can't die. Marcus pleaded, grabbing the doctor's arm, tears streaming down his face. Melissa was wailing hysterically nearby. The room reeked of despair. I pushed my way through the crowd and walked to the bedside. On the bed, General Stone's face was a deathly blue, his lips black. His breathing was so shallow it was almost non-existent. The heart monitor next to the bed was letting out a long, continuous beep. The line was almost perfectly flat. Who let you in here? Get out. A young doctor in a lab coat snapped at me impatiently. Exactly. This is no place for you. Don't cause trouble. Melissa yelled, her eyes red and swollen. I ignored them. My gaze was fixed on the general's chest, where a single, gleaming silver needle was inserted. Who performed the acupuncture? I asked in a cold voice. The white-haired specialist, Dr. Walton, director of the Port Sterling Holistic Medical Center, frowned. I did. The general led a hard life in the service. His body is full of old wounds, and his heart is failing. I used the 9-point revival technique to preserve the last spark of life. Is there a problem? His tone was arrogant, the voice of a man whose authority was never questioned. The 9-point revival? I sneered. Looks more like the 9 steps to the grave to me. What did you say? Dr. Walton exploded with rage. You arrogant brat. How dare you speak such nonsense? What do you know about medicine? The other doctors and family members glared at me. He's right. Dr. Walton is the foremost medical expert in the city. Who are you to question him? He's just trying to make a scene. Serafina tugged on my sleeve, whispering, Cole, please stop. Even though she had her doubts about Dr. Walton, he was still the expert. And in her eyes, I was just a young man who knew a little first aid. I paid no attention to their accusations. I stared directly at Dr. Walton and said, enunciating every word, the general's heart isn't failing. During his time on the battlefield, he was exposed to a rare biotoxin known as aconite frost. The toxin lies dormant, usually only causing chills and cold extremities. But when stimulated by a powerful heat-based energy like the kind used in your needle technique, it erupts, attacking the heart and shutting down the body. Your revival technique, which channels pure bioenergy, looked like it was helping, but it was actually a death sentence. That one needle triggered the dormant toxin and sealed his fate. As I finished speaking, the room fell utterly silent. Everyone was stunned by my shocking claims. Dr. Walton's face went white as a sheet, his lips trembling as he pointed at me. You, that's ridiculous. You're lying. He denied it, but the terror in his eyes betrayed him. Because the symptoms I described matched the general's condition perfectly. Whether I'm lying or not, you know the truth, I said, my gaze cold. Now, take out your needle. Immediately, or not even God will be able to save him. Dr. Walton flinched under my stare, but there was no way he could admit he was wrong in front of all these people. He stuck out his chin. Why should I believe you? You're just a kid. If I pull that needle, the general could die instantly. Can you take responsibility for that? I can, I said flatly. You? With what? Your worthless life. Melissa shrieked. I was done wasting time with them. I lunged forward, my right hand a blur, and flicked the end of the silver needle. Twang! The needle vibrated with a soft hum and slid right out of the general's chest. You, Dr. Walton gasped in horror. That technique, to eject a needle with a simple flick, required decades of practice and mastery. Who was this kid? As everyone stared in shock, I pulled a small cloth pouch from my pocket. I unrolled it, revealing a set of 9 golden needles, all of different lengths and hues. What are you doing? Stop. Are you trying to kill him? Melissa lunged at me. Marcus hesitated, torn. Only Serafina, biting her lip, looked at my unshakable resolve, at the supreme confidence in my eyes, and did something she couldn't explain. She blocked her mother. Mom, let him try. Sarah, are you crazy? He'll kill your grandfather. Grandfather is already gone. Can it get any worse than this? Serafina yelled, her eyes filled with tears. Melissa froze. In that brief moment of hesitation, my first golden needle went in. Fast, precise, unwavering. My movements were like flowing water, as if I'd practiced them 1,000,000 times. The 9 golden needles came alive in my hands, transforming into 9 streaks of light that accurately pierced 9 major points on the general's torso. What was that technique? Dr. Walton whispered, his jaw hanging open. I didn't answer him. I pressed my index and middle fingers together and swept them over the ends of the 9 needles. Zzz. All 9 needles began to vibrate intensely in unison, emitting a low hum like a dragon's roar. Needle control through bioenergy. That's the legendary energy control technique. Dr. Walton screamed, collapsing to the floor in a heap of disbelief. The next second, something even more impossible happened. General Stone's deathly blue face began to regain its color, a healthy red spreading across his cheeks. His chest suddenly arched upwards. He opened his mouth and coughed, spewing a mouthful of black, foul-smelling blood. The blood splattered on the expensive hardwood floor, sizzling and smoking, corroding small pits into the wood. A vicious toxin indeed. The crowd scrambled backward in terror. And after coughing up the poison, General Stone's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. Cough. Where am I? The general's hoarse voice was clear as day to everyone in the room. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was frozen in place. He was alive? A man who had been declared dead, whose heart had all but stopped, was just brought back to life by a 20-something kid with 9 golden needles? Was this medicine? Or was it a miracle? Grandpa! Serafina was the first to snap out of it, rushing to the bedside, crying tears of joy. Marcus and Melissa stumbled forward, babbling incoherently, their faces a mess of tears and disbelief. As for me, I retrieved my needles and let out a long breath, a thin sheen of sweat on my forehead. The 9 revolutions technique took a lot out of me. Good thing I hadn't forgotten what my master taught me. I turned around, and through a sea of stunned faces, I walked over to the shell-shocked Dr. Walton. I looked down at him, my voice dripping with ice. So, do you think I know anything about medicine now? Dr. Walton, sprawled on the floor, was pale and trembling like a leaf. He looked up at me with an expression of pure terror and awe, as if he were looking at a god. Yes, I was blind, a fool. My skills are pathetic. I nearly killed the general. Master, please forgive my transgression. And then, in front of everyone, he began to kowtow, banging his head on the floor. That single act shattered any lingering doubt in the room. If the great Dr. Walton himself was on his knees, who would dare question my abilities? The relatives who had been yelling at me moments before now looked like they wanted the floor to swallow them whole, their eyes filled with reverence and a desperate need to please. And Melissa, my dear mother-in-law, just stood there, her mouth hanging open. She looked from me to the general, who was now sitting up in bed and talking, and the expression on her face was priceless. Shock, disbelief, embarrassment. All of it finally melted away and was replaced by a single, burning emotion. Greed. She was no longer looking at a loser. She was looking at a walking, talking bar of solid gold. Ahem. Was it this young man who saved me? General Stone asked. Propped up by Serafina, he looked weak, but his eyes were sharp, his military bearing undeniable as he stared at me. Grandpa. His name is Cole Evans. He's my... Serafina blushed, finding the word hard to say. He's your husband. My grandson-in-law, right? The general boomed with a laugh. He looked at me, his eyes filled with gratitude and admiration. Good kid. You got real skill. You saved this old man's life. From this day on, if anyone in this family dares to disrespect you, they'll have to answer to me, Samuel Stone. Samuel Stone. The general's name sent a fresh wave of shock through the room. This was the legendary Iron General, a man who had struck terror into the hearts of his enemies on the battlefield. Though long retired, his influence and connections were still immense. With that one sentence, he had just given me, the tag-along husband, a golden shield in the Stone family. Melissa's expression shifted rapidly, finally settling on a smile that looked more painful than a grimace. She scurried over to me, her attitude having done a complete 180. Oh, Cole, dear, look at this whole mess. Earlier, your mother was just so worried I wasn't thinking straight. You won't hold it against me, will you? She tried to take my hand affectionately as she spoke. I smoothly sidestepped her. I'm a simple man, I said, looking at her coolly. You show me respect, I'll show you more. You try to step on me, and I'll make sure you regret it. Melissa's smile froze on her face. She stood there, wringing her hands, not daring to say another word. In this family, starting today, my position had fundamentally changed. On the way back from the manor, Serafina and I sat in silence in the car. The atmosphere was different. She started to speak several times, only to stop herself. Finally, I broke the silence. Whatever you want to ask, just ask. Serafina took a deep breath and turned to me, her beautiful, icy eyes studying me intently. Who are you, really? Where did you learn to do that? She wasn't stupid. What I did today went far beyond knowing a little medicine. It was miraculous. My master taught me, I said, looking out the window at the passing city. He's an old man who lives up in the mountains. A bit of a hermit. I didn't tell her my master was the greatest living physician in the world. I didn't tell her about our organization, the sanctuary. And I certainly didn't tell her that the sanctuary held enough power to make the entire world tremble. It wasn't time for that yet. Serafina sensed I didn't want to say more and smartly dropped the subject. She just said very softly today, "Thank you." It was the first time she had ever spoken to me with such genuine sincerity. I smiled. He's my grandfather. A faint blush crept up Serafina's cheeks. She quickly turned her head to look out the window, but on the glass, I could see the reflection of her lips curved into a slight smile. When we got home, Melissa's attitude was like night and day. She had personally cooked a massive feast and even brought me a cup of tea with her own hands. "Cole, dear, you must be exhausted. Drink some tea. It'll help you relax. You worked so hard today," she said, her smile so wide it crinkled the corners of her eyes. I looked at the teacup but didn't touch it. "What's wrong?" "Not to your liking," Melissa asked timidly. "The tea is excellent. A rare single estate blend. A pound of this must cost a fortune," I said calmly. Melissa's smile grew even wider. "Oh, you have such refined taste. I had it specially flown in from..." Unfortunately, I cut her off, my eyes turning cold. "You added something to it that doesn't belong." Melissa's smile froze on her face. Serafina shot to her feet, staring at her mother in shock. "Mom, what did you do?" I lifted the cup, sniffed it delicately, and a mocking smile touched my lips. Nightshade bloom, colorless, odorless. The victim falls asleep, and their heart simply stops. It looks like a natural death. Very clever, mother-in-law. I looked up at Melissa, whose face was now as white as a ghost. "Were you planning," I asked, my voice dangerously low, "for me to have an accident in your home?" I didn't. You're lying." Melissa shrieked like a cornered animal, but her darting eyes and trembling voice gave her away completely. Serafina was shaking with rage. She ran to her mother, her voice filled with tears and disbelief. "Mom, how could you? He just saved Grandpa's life today." Melissa was speechless, and finally, she just broke down, sobbing. "What choice did I have? You married this nobody. The Stone family is a disgrace. Trevor King called me today just to laugh at me. Said he heard we were recruiting from the gutter. I had to get rid of him so you could remarry someone suitable. It's the only way to save our family." So that was it. The King family. Trevor King. A cold smile formed in my mind. It seemed my real enemies were starting to show their hands. "So you decided to poison me?" I asked, holding the teacup as I walked slowly toward Melissa. She scrambled backward with every step I took. "What were you doing? I'm your mother-in-law. Don't you dare touch me," she screeched. I stood right in front of her. As she stared up at me in terror, I slowly brought the teacup to her lips. "Since you're so sure it's fine, why don't you drink it?" My voice was devoid of all emotion. "No, I won't. Get it away from me." Melissa was frantic, shaking her head and clamping her hands over her mouth. "Drink it." My voice turned to steel. "I won't." I said, "Drink it." I roared, a flash of pure, killing intent in my eyes. In that instant, Melissa must have seen something terrifying because her legs gave out and she collapsed to the floor. A dark stain spread across her expensive pants. I had scared her so badly she'd wet herself. "Cole!" Serafina gasped, shocked by the terrifying aura I was projecting. I ignored the pathetic woman on the floor. I tossed the poison tea into the trash can and pulled out my phone, dialing a number. Hello, it's me. A deeply respectful voice answered on the other end. Sir, what are your orders? I need you to deliver a gift to Trevor King of the King family here in Port Sterling, I said calmly. Tell him it's a welcome present from the Stone family's new son-in-law. Yes, sir. I hung up and looked down at Melissa as if she were a piece of trash. Because of Serafina and the general, I'm letting this go. But there won't be a next time. If you ever try something like this again, I will teach you the meaning of a fate worse than death. Then, I turned and walked back to my room without a backward glance. In the living room, only Serafina's complicated gaze and Melissa's ragged, terrified breathing remained. The next day, a minor earthquake hit the Port Sterling business community. Trevor King, the heir to the King Corporation, was ambushed in the parking garage of his own office building. Someone threw a sack over his head and shattered both of his legs. The job was apparently done by a professional. The breaks were clean, precise, not life-threatening, but guaranteed to keep him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. The strangest part? Not a shred of evidence was left behind. The security cameras in the entire area had mysteriously malfunctioned during that exact window of time. The King family was furious. Trevor's father, the formidable Victor King, offered a multi-million-dollar reward for information, but came up with nothing. The incident became a whispered mystery among the city's elite. Only a few people had a good idea of what really happened. In the Stone family dining room, the news report was playing on the television. Melissa saw the footage of Trevor's bandaged legs and dropped her fork with a clatter, her face bloodless. She shot a terrified glance in my direction. She knew. This was my retaliation, and my warning to her. Serafina watched the news in silence. She didn't ask any questions. She just quietly placed a piece of steak on my plate. Eat more, she said softly. I smiled and ate the steak. Just then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered. Cole Evans, I presume? This is Victor King. A cold, ruthless voice came through the speaker. My son's legs. Was it you? It was, I admitted freely. There was a pause on the other end, as if Victor King was surprised by my candor. Then came a chilling laugh. Good. Very good. You got guts. I don't care who you are or what backup you think you have. You touch my son. Now you die. I'm giving you 3 days. You will bring that stone girl with you. You will kneel before me, and you will break your own arms and legs. If you don't, in 3 days, the Stone family will cease to exist in Port Sterling. His voice was absolute, filled with the murderous arrogance of a man used to getting his way. This was Victor King, the true underworld emperor of the city. But I just chuckled softly. Victor, I think you've got one thing wrong. And what's that? I picked up the piece of steak Serafina had given me, chewed it slowly, and then said, I'm the one giving you a chance. You have 3 days to transfer every asset you own to my wife, Serafina Stone. Then you will take your worthless son and get out of Port Sterling. Otherwise, in 3 days, there will be no King family. My words were met with 5 full seconds of stunned silence. Then, an explosive roar of fury erupted from the phone. You little bastard. Do you have any idea who you're talking to? You're dead. I could almost see his veins popping, his face contorted with rage. I didn't bother replying. I just hung up. The dining room was terrifyingly quiet. Marcus and Melissa looked like they'd seen a ghost. Challenging Victor King directly, demanding he go bankrupt and leave the city in 3 days. Was I insane? The King family wasn't just a company. They were an empire. They had their hands in everything, legal and illegal. They were worth billions. A man like Victor King could make the entire city shake with a single command. Even at its peak, the Stone family had to walk on eggshells around the Kings, let alone now, when they were on the brink of collapse. You've doomed us all. Marcus pointed at me, his finger trembling. You just signed our death warrant. It's over. We're finished. Victor King will destroy us. Melissa burst into tears, slumping in her chair. Only Serafina, though her face was pale, didn't join in the accusations. She just looked at me and asked quietly, Are you sure you can handle this? I looked into her eyes, which held a mixture of worry and a flicker of trust, and smiled. I told you, as long as I'm here, no one gets to bully you. A little family like the Kings? They're not even on my radar. My absolute confidence seemed to calm her. She said no more, just watched me, as if trying to uncover the world-shaking secrets hidden behind my ordinary face. For the next 2 days, a storm cloud of dread hung over the Stone household. Marcus and Melissa were running around like headless chickens, calling everyone they knew, trying to find someone, anyone, who could reason with Victor King. But the moment his name was mentioned, the line would go dead. Despair was setting in. And me? I acted like nothing was wrong. I ate well, slept well, and even played a few games of chess with the general in the garden. "Kid, you got a plan, or are you just bluffing?" the general asked, placing a chess piece on the board. "General, do you trust me?" I countered with a smile. He let out a hearty laugh. "You saved my life. Who else would I trust? That little punk Victor King. I remember bouncing him on my knee when he was a boy. Now he thinks he can push my family around? You do what you have to do. If the sky falls, this old soldier will be here to help you hold it up." A warmth spread through my chest. "Don't worry, General," I said, capturing one of his key pieces. "The sky isn't going to fall." The third day, Victor King's deadline. Early in the morning, a fleet of black sedans pulled up and blocked the entrance to the Stone Manor. Dozens of large men in black suits and sunglasses got out, all of them radiating an aura of violence. The one in the lead had a nasty scar across his face. "Mr. King's orders. He requests the presence of Mr. Cole Evans and Ms. Seraphina Stone at his estate." The man's voice was cold and final. Marcus and Melissa nearly fainted from fear. "They're here. They're here to take them." Seraphina's face was white, but she instinctively stepped in front of me. "I'll go with you. This has nothing to do with him." I gently pulled her behind me, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Then I stepped forward to face Scarface. "Go back and tell Victor King to wait for me," I said calmly. "I'll be there shortly." The man paused, then a cruel smile twisted his lips. "Cocky little bastard. Let's see if you're still talking so tough when you're standing in front of Mr. King." He waved his hand, and his men got back in their cars and sped off. As soon as they were gone, Melissa collapsed. "Why are you going? It's a death trap." "Be quiet," I said sharply. Her sobbing stopped instantly. I turned to Marcus. "Get a car ready for me." His lips trembled. You're really going?" "I told you. After today, there will be no King family in Port Sterling." My voice was quiet, but it held an authority that was impossible to deny. Half an hour later, I was alone, driving Seraphina's red Maserati towards the King estate on Pinnacle Ridge. The King estate. The opulent grand hall was packed with people. Seated in the center was a middle-aged man with cold, cruel eyes, Victor King. Next to him, in a wheelchair, his legs in casts, was his son, Trevor, his face a mask of hateful resentment. Lining the walls were over 100 of the King family's best enforcers. You could tell by their hardened expressions and coiled muscles that these were dangerous men. The scene was designed to terrify anyone who walked in. "Dad, is that bastard here yet? I'm going to personally feed him to the dogs today." Trevor snarled. Victor patted his shoulder, a look of twisted affection in his eyes. "Don't worry, son. No one can save him today. I'm going to teach him what happens when you cross the King family." Just then, the sound of a sports car engine roared outside. A guard ran in. "Boss, he's here. He's alone." "Alone?" Victor let out a cold laugh. "The fool doesn't know the meaning of fear." "Limit." The massive doors swung open. I walked in, dressed in my casual clothes, hands in my pockets as if I were taking a stroll in the park. My eyes swept over the 100 armed men, finally landing on Victor King. A small smile played on my lips. "Quite the welcoming party." "You actually came," Victor said, his eyes sizing me up as if I were already a corpse. "I gave you a chance to live. You were too stupid to take it." "A chance?" I laughed. "You're not qualified to offer me anything." "Kill him." Trevor shrieked from his wheelchair. "What are you all waiting for? Get him. Cripple him. I want to hear him beg for mercy." With a unified roar, the 100 men surged forward, a tidal wave of violence armed with steel pipes and machetes. Victor leaned back on his throne-like chair, sipping a glass of red wine, a sadistic smile on his face as he prepared to watch the slaughter. And yet, I just stood there. I didn't even flinch. I didn't even take my hands out of my pockets. I simply looked at the first dozen men rushing towards me and spoke a single word. "Kneel." My voice wasn't loud, but it seemed to carry an ancient, undeniable power. In the next second, something happened that made every jaw in the room drop. The first dozen thugs, the most ferocious of the bunch, stopped dead in their tracks, as if choked by an invisible force, as if their knees had just been shattered by sledgehammers. The savagery on their faces twisted into masks of pure terror and agony. And then, with a series of heavy thuds, they all collapsed to their knees before me. The hall fell deathly silent. The smile on Victor King's face froze. Trevor's scream died in his throat. Everyone stared, first at the kneeling men, then at me, standing there, perfectly calm. What? What has happened? Idiots! Why are you kneeling? Get up! Kill him! Trevor raged. But the men on the floor were white as sheets, shaking uncontrollably. They couldn't even lift their heads, let alone get up. They felt an immense, crushing pressure bearing down on them, making it hard to breathe. In their eyes, the young man before them was no longer a man. He was a demon, a god of death. The remaining thugs were spooked, clutching their weapons, hesitating, their faces a mixture of confusion and raw fear. Useless! Victor slammed his wine glass down, shattering it. He stood up, his cold eyes locked on me. Who are you? What kind of trick was that? A trick? I smiled. I don't need tricks to deal with garbage like you. I took a single step forward. Thud! The steps seemed to land on everyone's heart at once. The entire hall seemed to shake. The standing thugs felt a wave of terrifying pressure wash over them. With a clatter of dropped weapons, they too began to fall, one after another, unable to control their own bodies. Thud! 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 Like dominoes. In a matter of seconds, every single one of the King family's elite enforcers was on their knees. All except for Victor and his son. Victor was completely stunned. He'd been running Port Sterling for decades. He'd seen it all. But this was beyond his comprehension. To make 100 trained killers bow without lifting a finger, using nothing but sheer presence. Was that even humanly possible? What? What are you? A man or a monster? Victor's voice trembled. He took an involuntary step back. I'm the man you shouldn't have crossed. I walked toward him, each footstep a drumbeat on his failing courage. I gave you a chance. I stood before him, looking down at him. Now your time is up. Victor was starting to break. He mustered his last bit of bravado and yelled, Don't come any closer. I'm telling you, I have powerful people backing me. If you touch me, they will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Oh, I feigned interest. And who might that be? Clinging to his last hope, Victor spat, Director Zhang of the Dragon's Gate Syndicate. I pay him millions in tribute every year. He's an adept, a master of the old arts. A true killer. No matter how tough you think you are, you can't fight an adept. Dragon's Gate? Director Zhang. I paused, a strange expression on my face. Victor thought I was scared. His arrogance returned. What's wrong? Afraid? I'll tell you what. Kneel and apologize to my son. Then break your own arms, and maybe I'll put in a good word for you with Director Zhang. Maybe he'll let you live. I looked at him like he was the world's biggest idiot. I pulled out my phone and, right in front of him, dialed a number. Hey, Zhang, it's me. The voice that came back was frantic, terrified, and filled with utter reverence. Yes, sir. Is it you? Why are you calling me personally? Is there something you require of me? I put the call on speaker. Victor heard the voice and froze, the color draining from his face. He knew that voice. It was his ultimate protector, the untouchable Director Zhang of Dragon's Gate. Nothing major, I said casually. I was just wondering. There's a guy here in Port Sterling, name's Victor King. Is he one of yours? Director Zhang was silent for a second. Then his voice turned into a furious, panicked roar. Victor King? That worthless insect. Did he offend you, sir? Please, rest assured, I have no connection to him whatsoever. I'll send my men over right now and have his entire family fed to the dogs for you. No need, I said, glancing at the puddle of a man that was once Victor King. I'm already at his house. What? Zhang sounded like he was about to have a heart attack. Sir, where are you? I'm coming right now to beg for your forgiveness. That bastard, I'll skin him alive. Don't bother, I said calmly. From now on, I don't want to see a single person with the name King in Port Sterling. Yes, sir. I understand completely. I will see it done. Within 3 days, no, within 1 day. I swear they will vanish from the face of the earth. Zhang promised, his voice trembling. Good. I hung up. The hall was silent as a tomb. Trevor had fainted in his wheelchair. Victor King was on the floor, soaked in a cold sweat, muttering to himself, "Impossible. This is impossible. Who are you? Who are you?" I walked over, crouched down, and patted his cheek. "Me? My name is Cole Evans, and I'm the man you can't afford to offend." When I left the King estate, there wasn't a sound behind me. I knew that from the moment I hung up that phone, the King family's fate was sealed. To appease me, Director Zhang would erase them from Port Sterling with 100 times more brutality than I ever would have. That was just how the world worked. Driving the red Maserati home, the warm light of the setting sun fell on my face. I knew the power structure of Port Sterling had just been irrevocably altered. When I got back to the Stone Manor, the atmosphere was tense. Marcus and Melissa were sitting rigidly on the couch. When they saw me, their faces were a mixture of awe and terror. The general sat in his armchair, sipping tea, a knowing smile on his face. And Serafina, who had been standing by the window, spun around the moment she heard the door. Her eyes locked onto me, her beautiful, icy gaze filled with worry, tension, and a deep-seated hope she probably didn't even recognize herself. The moment she saw I was unharmed, her whole body relaxed. She rushed over, looking me up and down, her voice trembling slightly. Are you okay? Victor King, he didn't hurt you." I smiled, reached up, and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her forehead. "I told you, he wasn't qualified." The light touch of my fingertips on her skin made her flinch, and a deep blush instantly spread across her cheeks. It was the first time I'd ever seen her look so flustered, so vulnerable. The Ice Queen, it turned out, was even more beautiful when she melted. Ahem. The general cleared his throat loudly, breaking the spell. "Kid, come sit," he said, beckoning me over. I sat down on the couch. Marcus and Melissa shot up as if electrocuted, standing respectfully to the side, not even daring to sit in my presence. "Dad, Cole, you two talk. We'll go check on dinner," Melissa stammered, dragging her husband with her as she fled to the kitchen. They were now more afraid of me than they were of the general. "The King family matter is settled?" The general asked casually. "Settled," I confirmed. "From now on, there is no King family in Port Sterling." A sharp gasp came from the kitchen doorway. The general, however, just laughed, his eyes glinting. "Good. Excellent. Decisive and ruthless. Reminds me of myself in my younger days. Serafina marrying you is the best thing that ever happened to this family." Serafina's face turned an even deeper shade of red. She looked down at the floor, avoiding our eyes. But the general's tone shifted, his gaze sharpening as he looked at me. "Kid, level with me. Who are you, really? Why was the director of Dragon's Gate so terrified of you?" Serafina's ears perked up at the question. I thought for a moment. It was time they knew. I looked at the general and said slowly, "General, have you ever heard of a group called the Sanctuary?" "The Sanctuary?" The general's eyes widened, his teacup rattling in his hand, spilling hot tea onto his lap. "You mean the legendary hidden society that controls half the world's most advanced medical resources? The one whose word is law, who could decide life and death. The one even world leaders bowed down to," he gasped. I nodded. "My master is the current head of the Sanctuary." I paused, looking at the completely petrified faces of the general and Serafina, and said, "And I am his only direct disciple, the next in line to lead it." Boom! My words were like 1,000 bolts of lightning striking their minds at once. They were both utterly frozen. Heir to the Sanctuary. What did that even mean? It meant wealth beyond imagination. It meant connections that reached the highest echelons of global power. It meant the absolute authority over life and death. The general, having lived a life at the top, knew better than anyone the true weight of those two words. It was an organization that existed above and beyond the trivial power struggles of the mundane world. He never would have dreamed that his impromptu grandson-in-law was the heir to that mythical, untouchable institution. No wonder his medical skills were godlike. No wonder he was so calm in the face of Victor King's threats. No wonder a powerful syndicate director acted like a terrified dog in his presence. It wasn't arrogance. It was that he was standing on a summit so high that the rest of the world was just a blur below. To him, The King family wasn't even an ant. Gulp. The general swallowed hard. The look in his eyes had transformed from admiration to pure, unadulterated awe. As for Serafina, the heart she had kept frozen for more than 20 years shattered, melted, and then began to beat with a ferocity she had never felt before. She stared at me, her beautiful eyes swirling with a storm of emotions: shock, adoration, fascination, and the shy blush of a girl in love. She thought she had condescended, had settled for less. But it turned out she had married up, so far up that it was beyond her wildest dreams. No, this wasn't just marrying up. This was marrying the sky itself. Her husband was the sky. The realization sent her mind reeling, her heart pounding in her chest. An overwhelming sense of security and happiness enveloped her. I'll go get you a glass of water, she stammered, her face so red it looked like it was on fire, before she practically fled to the kitchen. I couldn't help but smile as I watched her go. From the kitchen, I heard a muffled shriek, followed by the sound of pots and pans crashing to the floor. Clearly, Melissa had overheard. I had a feeling my mother-in-law was about to become the most attentive, doting mother-in-law in human history. That night, Port Sterling was shaken to its core. The King Corporation declared bankruptcy overnight. All of its assets were forcibly acquired by a mysterious overseas fund for pennies on the dollar. The chairman, Victor King, was reported to have jumped from his office window. His son, Trevor, was found in his hospital bed with his tendons severed. He would live out his days as a vegetable. Every core member of the King family vanished without a trace. Just like that, the once invincible King dynasty was wiped clean from the face of the earth. It happened so fast, no one could process it. A chilling silence fell over the city's upper crust. They didn't know what had happened, but they knew one thing for sure. The balance of power in Port Sterling had changed forever. And me, the architect of it all, was lying in the guest room bed, getting ready to sleep. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. The door opened, and Serafina walked in. She was wearing a silk nightgown that clung to her perfect curves, her long, pale legs seeming to glow in the soft light. She was holding a glass of warm milk, her head bowed, a shy, nervous energy about her. I thought you might be hungry, so I warmed you up some milk, she whispered, placing it on the nightstand. Was this the same cold, untouchable ice queen? I sat up and gave her a knowing smile. Just milk. Her face flushed in even deeper red. She twisted the hem of her nightgown for a long moment before she finally worked up the courage to look at me, her big eyes glistening. Her voice was soft with a hint of a plea. Could you maybe not sleep in the guest room tonight? I looked at her, at that shy, hopeful expression, and my heart skipped a beat. This woman, so cold and distant to the world, was like a gentle kitten in front of me. I reached out and pulled her into my arms. She let out a small gasp, her body tensing for a second before she melted against my chest. I could feel her heart hammering against my own. Are you sure? I whispered in her ear. The warm breath on her skin made her shiver, and she buried her face, now the color of a ripe apple, in my shoulder. She managed a barely audible sound from her throat. Then, she did something incredibly brave. She lifted her head, her eyes hazy with emotion, and she kissed me. That night, the iceberg melted, turning into a river of passion. The next morning, I woke up feeling better than I ever had in my life. The beauty beside me was still sound asleep. Looking at her peaceful, angelic face, a profound softness filled my heart. From now on, she was the woman I would protect for the rest of my life. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message from my encrypted contact. Sir, Leo Harrison has been secured. Awaiting your orders. My eyes turned cold. Now, it was time to settle our accounts. Bring him to Port Sterling. I want to see him myself. I texted back. Yes, sir. That afternoon, in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, I sat in a chair, leisurely sipping the tea Serafina had personally made for me. Kneeling before me was a man, beaten and bruised, a pathetic mess. It was Leo Harrison, the man who had been so arrogant on his private jet just a few days ago. He'd been snatched from his vacation and dragged back here. Now, he was kneeling like a dog, shaking uncontrollably. Cole, bro, I'm sorry. I was so wrong. The moment he saw me, he started crawling forward, weeping, trying to grab my legs. A guard kicked him away. Cole, we're best friends. Remember? We used to drink together, get into fights. You took a punch from me once. You can't do this to me, he wailed, trying to play on our old friendship. Friends. I put down my teacup, stood up, and walked over to him. In my book, friend isn't a word you use as a shield after you betray someone. The moment you decided to humiliate Serafina, to humiliate her family, to play all of us for fools, you and I were done. My voice was like ice. Leo's hope died. He knew begging was useless. His face twisted into a hateful snarl. Cole, don't you get all high and mighty. You're just leeching off that bitch Serafina. You're a pathetic freeloader. Who the hell are you to judge me? Go on, kill me. I dare you. Kill you. I smiled, a truly terrifying smile. That will be letting you off too easy. I turned to the guard beside me. Take him away. Yes, sir. What are you doing? Let me go. Cole, you bastard. I hope you're rot in hell. Leo screamed as two guards hauled him to his feet. I looked at him and said calmly, I hear they're always looking for extra workers in the diamond mines in Africa. Take him there. Let him experience what a real hard life is. Leo's curses choked in his throat. An expression of terror far worse than the fear of death washed over his face. The African mines? That wasn't a place. It was a living hell. A place you went to beg for a death that would never come. No. No. Cole, bro, I'm sorry. Please just kill me. Kill me now. He was completely broken, sobbing and begging. But no one listened. He was dragged out of the warehouse, his desperate screams fading into the distance. I looked out at the bright sunshine and let out a long breath. A debt for a debt, kindness for kindness, and vengeance for betrayal. That was my code. With Leo dealt with, a weight was lifted from my shoulders. When I got home, Serafina was waiting for me in the living room. She seemed to know what I'd been doing. She didn't ask. She just walked up to me and gently straightened my collar. Is it over? She asked softly. Yes, it's all over, I said, taking her hand and kissing it. A blush crept up her cheeks, but her eyes were filled with relief and a deep sense of attachment. After everything we'd been through, our relationship had grown far beyond that ridiculous contract. We were inseparable. That evening, the general called us into his study. He pushed a folder across his desk toward us. These are the transfer documents for Stone Industries, he said with a smile. I've decided to sign over all of my shares to Serafina. From now on, the family business belongs to you too. Serafina was surprised. Grandpa, I can't. Take it. The general waved his hand. You're a better leader than your father. Besides, with Cole by your side, I have nothing to worry about. He looked at me, his eyes full of hope. Cole, from now on, I'm entrusting Serafina and the Stone family to you. I gave a solemn nod. Don't worry, General. With me here, the family will only prosper. Just then my phone rang. It was my master, the elusive head of the sanctuary. I stepped aside to take the call. You brat, are you done playing around out there? My master's booming voice laughed from the other end. The senior disciples I found for you are about to tear my entire mountain down. They're all demanding to come find you. If you don't get back here soon, I'm not going to be able to hold them off. Senior disciples? Plural. My blood ran cold. My sisters in training were not exactly subtle. The first was a financial queen who ran a top European conglomerate. The second was a pampered princess from a Middle Eastern royal family. The third was the leader of the world's most notorious assassin guild. If they all showed up in Port Sterling, the city would probably burn to the ground. Master, I'm still a little tied up here, I said nervously. What could possibly be more important than inheriting my title, he huffed. I'm telling you now, I've already sent out the invitations. The succession ceremony is next month. Every major power in the world is sending a representative. If you're late, I swear I'll break both your legs. He hung up before I could reply. I stood there, holding my phone, a helpless smile on my face. It seemed my quiet life was about to come to an end. I walked back into the study. Serafina and the general were looking at me curiously. That was my master, I said with a shrug. He wants me to come back next month to officially take over as the head of the sanctuary. The general gasped, his face lighting up with pure elation. Wonderful. That's the best news I've ever heard. The head of the sanctuary. That was a position that stood at the absolute pinnacle of the world. Serafina's eyes sparkled with pride for her husband. But then, a shadow of insecurity crossed her face. He was going to become one of the most powerful and visible men in the world. And she was just a small-time CEO in Port Sterling. The gap between them, was it too vast? Was she no longer good enough for him? I saw the doubt in her eyes. I walked over to her, gently took her face in my hands, and looked deep in her eyes. Sarah, what are you thinking? She bit her lip, looking down. I am afraid. I'm not worthy of you. I smiled. I pulled her into a tight embrace and whispered in her ear, my voice both tender and absolute. You foolish girl. The sanctuary, the pinnacle of the world. None of it means a thing to me compared to a single strand of your hair. After I handle things there, I'm coming back. And when I do, I'm going to give you the grandest wedding the world has ever seen. I'm going to make sure everyone knows that you, Serafina Stone, are my one and only wife. Port Sterling is too small for you, so I'm going to give you the world.